everybody, and welcome back to Doorway to Discovery. Today we're going to be talking about 2021's best picks, some of our personal favorites, some winners on Goodreads, and of course we also learned how to use a new system that we've been using to tell us all of the books that you guys have checked out the most this year, which is kind of cool. So we picked from a list of things that way to pick some of good books that won this year. So we're going to get into that. And welcome. It's a new year. It's January 2022. Hoping for the best. And Kylie, what did you read today?
Yeah, so I read, if you can see it there, Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. It was very interesting. It is sci-fi, and it's about AI technology. So basically, it's from the perspective of an artificial friend. So they call them AF units, named Clara. And she starts off like living in a store, waiting to be purchased to be an artificial friend for like a child, which is like very interesting to see her just be like, today we're in the store and today we got moved to the window of the store. And it sounds really boring, but it was kind of cool to be like in the mind of a robot, sort of. So essentially it follows Clara as she is purchased for this child named Josie. I guess she's more of a teenager, who is quite sick. And so it's kind of following her and the family as they deal with Josie's illness and her being in school. It's a very confusing world, I will say. It's very, there's not a lot of description. So I don't really know when this is supposed to be, how far in the future this is supposed to be, or where we are, which was confusing, but also kind of cool. But yeah, it's creepy, sort of, almost like in an eerie way. Not to spoil anything, but the way that the AI technology works is kind of eerie. But yeah, it was kind of fascinating to see this futuristic world like from the point of view of a robot and how they kind of take in their surroundings and like people, humanity. She was a very observant robot and like really likes people. So kind of creepy, but very cool.
Awesome.
And, we were talking a little bit before we started, and just to clarify, what do the AIs look like?
Yeah,
I know like low on description, but you have like some idea, right?
Yeah, they're very like humanoid, I guess. Like they're not described as looking like robotic. And they are very much like okay, when we first meet Clara, Josie's like, oh, she's so cute. She has short hair and like she looks like a very stylish person. And I'm like, oh, a stylish person robot? Like it's, yeah, they're very, I guess you can kind of tell like that a AF is an AF, but like they are very like human looking.
Oh, it just seems creepy.
Yeah, I'm definitely picturing like the robots from that Will Smith movie. Like
Erin, what did you read?
Shockingly, I read a romance. I know.
Ooh.
So out of character for me. So I read Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. And honestly, this book is so very cute. So the main character, I'm trying to remember it. Oh, Ruthie. So Ruthie works at this like super exclusive retirement community. So it's sort of like one of those like gated communities, and they have like their own little houses and their own little country club and restaurants and like all of that kind of thing. So Ruthie runs everything. And you know, she's got really cute close relationships with all the people that work there, that live there, and she, you know, does her rounds and checks on them and makes sure everything's okay, and you know, plans their parties and all of that. And one day, Teddy, who is the owner, I guess the owner's son, he stops by and like immediately like annoys Ruthie. Like he comes in and he's this really laid back, kind of laissez-faire, doesn't really care about anything. And Ruthie's a little uptight and like very A-type personality. And she's like, oh my God, this guy is so annoying. I just need him out of my office so I can like focus on my work. And then basically you find out like the owner is thinking of selling the retirement community, and so Ruthie's trying to get him to stop, and he's basically like, well, you're a little short staffed, so like in the meantime, while I'm trying to find a buyer, like my son's gonna come help you out. And she's like, absolutely not, like I don't want him here. But obviously that doesn't happen, so Teddy ends up becoming like a personal assistant to these two ladies that live in the retirement community, who are like notoriously difficult to work with, and they're also Ruthie's favorite people. So they'll send him all these like ridiculous errands, and they'll be like, you have to get you know, a eggshell white button up long sleeve shirt or something like that, and he'll come back with one. They're like, that's not eggshell, and they'll like send it back to the store. So it's really cute because it sort of like teaches him a little bit of responsibility, because there's definitely a little bit of nepotism in that role because his dad owns the company. And obviously Ruthie and Teddy like fall for each other, and it's very sweet. And you know, there's like the underlying story of those like two or the older ladies as well. And you know, there's like little turtles that live in the enclosure, and they're always like on the pathways, and you have to like make sure not to step on the turtles. And it's just really sweet and cute and adorable, and it made me happy and put me in a really sweet mood. So if you want something just sickeningly sweet that'll warm your cold dead heart,
Adding that to my list.
Yeah, it's lovely. I really liked it. It was a cute book.
That sounds so sweet. A nice little retirement community with turtles.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a sweet place. I would like to retire there.
Yeah, but it's the funniest thing, because like the two older ladies, they're like late 80s, early 90s, like they're quite old, and they are such characters, and they are hilarious, and they drive around in like their motorized scooters, and they'll like
Amazing.
intentionally like run over people's feet if they're like in the way. Like
Oh my
it's
God.
it's a fantastic book. I really liked it.
I aspire to be those ladies in that book. That's
Same.
it.
Yeah,
That's all.
that's all I wanted in life.
I don't need the
want-
just the
I don't
motor.
need the romance. I just want to be able to run over someone with my motorized scooter. Yeah, it was great.
Well, I'm glad you read a happy romance, because I read Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, thinking it was just going to be, you know, a general fiction. And I was like, wow, Shelby, you've really just like reached out of your comfort zone. Like, you're going to read a different kind of book.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I very rarely get upset with a book. I don't think we've ever once like smack talk a book on here at all. I am not happy. I'm not happy with this book. I'm not happy at all. It started off really great. So there are 4 people in total. So we've got Simon and Felix, Alice, and oh my gosh, I don't even remember her name. I am so terrible. Oh, why don't I remember her name?
Is it on the cover?
Oh, Eileen, that's what it is. I should know. I've read it a million times over and over again. Eileen and Simon live like kind of close to each other, and then Alice and Felix live close to each other. So Alice and Felix are up in Dublin, and I can't really figure out where Simon and Eileen are, but they're like closer to a city. So I'm not sure if they're still in Ireland or where, but basically the concept is that Simon and Eileen met when Simon was 20 and Eileen was 15. And then Alice and Eileen met in college and became best friends and lived together. And then Simon came to visit Eileen and became really close friends with Alice as well. So the 3 of them are really close friends, but their lives have just kind of taken them in different directions. So Alice is a novelist. So she was living in New York, and then she ended up having like a mental breakdown and had to come home and live in a hospital. And now she's like living in this big house in Dublin that she's living in rent-free and writing, I guess, at the same time. Whereas Eileen is an editor for a magazine, and Simon does something. He doesn't really say exactly what it is. He's always there late. And I think it's something with like maybe policy or like government / lawyer. I don't know, in that kind of like vein. And then Felix is like kind of new. So Alice meets Felix on Tinder because she doesn't know anybody in Dublin, and they like go on a date, and that's how the novel opens.
Yeah.
And like that was all fine because it didn't end up going well. And I figure, these are all just people who are friends with each other, and you're going to see their lives and how they interact. And Alice and Eileen email back and forth, and their emails back and forth to each other are very interesting. They're about life and love and like society. They get into like the fall of the Bronze Age and going into the Dark Ages, and like how they believe that that's kind of what's happening to our society now. So in a lot of senses, like I love the two girls and like how they speak to each other and the stuff that they talk about. But then I would say about half, because I got about halfway through. I have not finished it because I was very mad at it. Halfway through, they all just start like having these like relationships with like the two boys, so Felix and Simon again, and I hate it. I hate it with my whole entire heart, because it's not romantic. It's not like a romance, or like ones like the one that you just described. It's not fun. It's boring. I'm sorry. They're not fun relationships. And Simon and Eileen, they're 5 years apart, and they've got this weird relationship where like she's younger than him and she's always looked up to him, and now it's kind of turning into this whole kind of relationship. But he's very religious and she like isn't religious at all, and so like there's this whole conversation about like his beliefs, and like yeah, I just wasn't very happy. I got to a certain point and I was like, I don't want to read this anymore. Like I'm really just it's not what I wanted. I was hoping, I think, or less, that it was going to be more about the women and like their lives and kind of like, pushing them to do more and like reach out and like have happy lives. And I will eventually probably finish it because I do like the writing. But they also do that weird thing where there's no like quotations for when people are speaking. There's no change in the way things are done when they're writing emails. So all of a sudden you like go to the next chapter and it's just written in prose, but they're email. And so I'm used to like the kind of thing where they change the font or like they have some kind of like graphics that tell you that that's what's happening. So I'll always get to the end of an email and completely forget who's writing the email because they both kind of like speak similarly too. But other than that, like I like the writing in general. It was just where the story was going that I kind of lost faith and hope in it. Yeah, I was just kind of disappointed. I was hoping for more, and I think I should have picked something that wasn't in general fiction, because general adult fiction is just like, these are people's lives and you're just gonna like be around for a couple of weeks and then it's gonna end. I was kind of hoping there's one point, I know I'm kind of like ranting, there was one point where they both men were like in cars, or like Simon was like walking through a security gate and it was taking a long time because somebody had been pulled out of the line, and then the other guy was driving and I'm like, ooh, is something big gonna happen? Is someone gonna get into a car accident? Does somebody have a bomb? I was like, where's the big moment of something happening? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I was like, give me something. I need drama. Like, there's nothing. So if you're in for just like a book that's gonna throw a lot of information at you and have bad relationships with men, then like go for it. But I wouldn't if I were you.
Yeah,
and I don't know why.
Some people love general fiction, and that is fine. But my personal feelings are, I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum.
Yeah.
But I live my own boring day-to-day life. I don't need to read about somebody else's, right? Like I want something a little more exciting.
No, and it was like talking about his like empty apartment before he came into it. And I was like, I don't care. Okay. I know my house is empty except for my cats. And that makes my life way better because I have cats. But like give them a funny quirk, like make them like collect gnomes. I don't know, something. Like give me something that makes you an interesting person, because right now nobody in this story is interesting except for Alice. I do like Alice. She's very straightforward and says what she's thinking, and like she knows who she is. But everybody else, I'm like, your life is not together, and it's not in a fun way. Like,
no, and if you're gonna read about messy lives, like I at least want them to be entertainingly messy.
yes, like I don't want it to be like, oh, I might know somebody who's currently like dealing with this, or like for instance, like Eileen's living with a married couple, but it's not like funny where like they interact and she's like seeing it. It's just like she's alone in her bedroom and she hears them like talking outside or like talking about ordering dinner. I'm like, that's depressing and boring. Like that's not fun. Maybe if it
Like,
was like,
make
oh,
it
I want
quirky.
to on having a bath together or something, like something to make it fun, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not, and I did not have fun.
I'm
I felt
so-
like a
I
boring
did
adult.
not have fun.
You know, I didn't feel anything, and I'm sad. So that was my book that I read. I'm sorry I went on for too long, but I was very
That's
mad.
okay.
So
No,
mad.
that's fair. We should also let the readers know that most of the books I think that we picked are ones that were specifically circulated. And when I say circulated, I mean like checked out
Yes.
from our library in 2021, like a lot.
Mhm.
It was like
The top 100
the top
we
100.
picked from, yeah.
I wonder, I think, I can't remember if Beautiful World was on that list as well, or if it was on another list too, but I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was too, because Sally, it was her new book and her last one was really popular. So
Yes. Sorry for my rant.
That's
Oh,
okay.
I loved every second. So ladies, should we talk about our personal favorites from this year? Maybe not
Yes.
the best circulated, but what we loved.
Yes.
Kylie,
Yeah.
what did you love?
Okay, my personal favorite was actually like the first book that I read this year. It is Lore by Alexandra Bracken.
Oh, such a good book.
Loved Lore. I love Alexandra Bracken. I've read everything she's written to date so far. And Lore is a teen kind of urban fantasy almost. It basically is a reimagining of Greek mythology in New York City. So essentially the book opens at the beginning of the Agon, which is a kind of Greek hunt where every 7 years the Olympic gods come down to Earth stripped of their powers and are basically fighting for their lives as these 7 families try to hunt them down to take their powers for themselves. So essentially whoever kills a god in the Agon becomes the god themselves.
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
I believe at the beginning of the book, there's only like 2 or 3 like of the actual gods left. Everyone else is like the reincarnation of one of the gods.
I was gonna say,
It
how many
was-
gods died? I want to know.
It was, I think like there's only like 2 or 3 left. It is fascinating. I really loved it. I love Greek mythology so much, and there was just like so much good content in here. But it was also like such a cool like way to reimagine it. Also, Alex Bracken is amazing at found family.
Yeah.
And the found family in this was fabulous. Yeah. So essentially we follow Lore of House Perseus. She is the last of her house. Everyone else is dead. She's been trying to get out of this world since the last Agon 7 years ago. She's almost succeeded. And then the night before it starts, she's dragged back in by a friend who she thought was dead, but they are not. So yeah, we essentially follow her as she makes like deals with gods for like protection and like power, and basically tries not to get killed in the Agon. It was really, really good. Yeah, Alex Bracken, great book. Highly recommend.
Yeah,
Great
it's
book.
so fast paced too. Like it's
Yeah,
right from the beginning. I remember reading it, and like the whole time I was like on the edge of my seat, like roller coaster. It was amazing.
it's so many twists and turns, and like, yeah, I was not expecting what happened in the end to be happening.
No, I know.
It's such a surprise. So it's really fun. Also, I don't have it here with me, but it is a gorgeous book.
Here, let me pull it up. It's so pretty.
It's
It's got, I
beautiful.
think, Medusa on the front, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I think I got an advanced copy and then like started it, and I'm not a huge fan of mythology. Like I've tried. See, it's so pretty.
so pretty.
The camera to work.
Hard to see, though.
Better.
Like you have to
I mean,
see it.
we'll put a screenshot of it up too.
Kate, put the real picture up.
Yeah, Kate's gonna put the real picture up. Yeah, it was so good.
Moving your phone.
I need the second one, like yesterday.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Love that book.
Fantastic. Yeah, she's a fantastic author. Just like read. The only thing I haven't read that she's written is Brightly Woven, which I think is her first book, but I've read everything else.
Actually, I haven't read that one either, but it's on the list.
Like The Passenger duology. Oh,
so good.
and all the Darkest Minds books. Yeah, she's
Love
fantastic.
them.
So Shelby, what was your favorite of 2021?
This is so predictable of me. Okay, I had a bad reading year. For those of you who are out here being like, man, I didn't read that much, that's me. Last year I read like 70 some odd books. This year I was like, I can do it. I can do 100. Yes, I got to 30. So I had a very low reading year this year. I didn't read a lot. Just, you know, you have those years sometimes, right? Like it just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But my favorite, and will continue to be my favorite, is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. It is a phenomenal read. All of her books are just so good. I have an advanced copy of her newest one that's coming out in 2022, I believe in May, called Book Lover. And I'm waiting until I'm done everything this week, and then I am reading it, and I'm not talking to anybody. Do not talk to me for the rest of the year. Okay? Because I'm reading this book. But People We Meet on Vacation, I've talked about it before, but if you guys haven't heard it, this is your first time here, welcome. Hello, this is us. Anyway, so People We Meet on Vacation is basically these two best friends that have known each other since university. They are polar opposites. The main character, which I'm so bad I cannot remember anybody's names right now because I read it literally in 2020. She is very quirky. She has like mostly like very vibrant colors, is very, you know, out there and very individual. And the love interest eventually is very straight-laced. He was the oldest brother. After his mom passed away, he took care of everything and everybody. So he's very much so like parent. I'm a square, like things have to be done the way that it's done. And she's obviously very different than that. And I think it's a lot of missed opportunities back and forth. Like, I think they've always had like a love for each other, but one person's in a relationship, the other one isn't. It kind of goes back and forth. And their biggest thing is that every year they go on a vacation because she is a travel. Thank you, Poppy and Alex. Thank you very much. I'm so bad. So that she's a travel blogger, basically. Like eventually, like she actually gets hired on as one because obviously they meet pretty young. And she always goes on vacation with him. And then they kind of have a falling out at one point. And when the book picks up, this is after they've had their falling out. And it's kind of them like coming back to each other. And she plans a trip that she does outside of her job. And they go, and it's just like, you know, one disaster after the other. But I think finally they find each other and like express their feelings. But I think the reason why I loved it so much was that it was more Poppy's journey through finding herself, because she was at a big moment in her life where things were changing and she didn't really know why she was doing the job that she did, and it didn't have the same kind of feeling to her that it used to. And that's when she realizes that it's more the people that she's meeting on the vacation rather than the vacation itself. So it's all these little individuals that you meet throughout all of this like back and forth between all the trips they've gone through. I cried several times in the book, just sort of like pure happiness. And at the end of the book, I finished it and I was like, I'm complete. Like if I never read another book ever again, I'm okay with that. And maybe that's my problem. Like I read her book and I was like, I can't read anything else ever again. So
this was it.
Make you feel so good and like give you that like energy that she has at the end where she figures out her life and you're like, yeah, like this is amazing. Like life really is amazing and people are amazing. And that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to get from Beautiful World. Where are you? And I did not get it. So maybe I will. But
you'll probably get it from the next Emily Henry book because she's amazing.
I've already started it. I started like the first chapter or two. And I'm sorry, I have to tell you guys, okay? Because I know you're out there and you love her too. So this is for all of you out there who love Emily Henry. We're on the fence, okay? I don't know why it's coming out in May, but basically it opens up. The main character, again, can't remember any names because I'm trashing the game. I'm sorry, everybody. Opens up. She is, so we all know those like holiday movies, the Hallmark movies, where a female lawyer goes to a town, she hates Christmas, all that kind of stuff, and like ends up falling in love with somebody, leaving her life and going there. So she is the woman that all of those men who like go on those trips leaves. So she's the cold, ice-hearted woman who they leave back in New York, and they have relationships in small towns where they've gone to save the community. And it literally like it happened to her like 5 times. She's like, I don't know what's wrong with me.
I'm
like,
obsessed already.
and it's been like 2 months with this guy. And he's like, yeah, like I got sent down here to like close this like Christmas village down. And you know what? I fell in love with the daughter and we're going to bring it back. And she's like, yeah, of course, figured. Good luck. Bye.
She's like, I knew it.
And she's an editor too of like novels. So her and her sister, who's very pregnant, decide that they're going to go on a vacation to this real life place that her novelist writes about. So she wrote a novel about it. It got huge. She goes to visit this real life place. And before, she had tried to get another editor or another like company to buy the book, because I guess she's the agent. That's what it is. She's the agent. He's an editor. He's like laughs in her face, like, no. And she's like, wow, this is going to be a phenomenal book. And it ends up being a phenomenal book, bestseller. So they go on vacation to this tiny little middle of nowhere town. When you know it, that's where he's from. And that's where he is. So that's where I've left it. They're in the middle of nowhere in a beautiful town. Her sister is heavily pregnant and she's run into this guy. And they start sending each other, this editor and this agent, back and forth, awful romances. So they're currently sending each other Bigfoot romances.
I don't know if the listeners care all that much. One of our hobbies is to find the most ridiculous romances out there.
Yes.
And so we won't get into like crazy detail because some of them are bananas crazy, but it's always entertaining. I think my personal favorite is like the firefighter griffin shifter. Like, yeah, that's a hobby of ours.
Yep. Erin, what was your favorite?
Oh my God, favorite. Again, I actually have had a really good reading year. I'm a little bit at the opposite of Shelby. So my goal was to read 100 books and I am at 99.
Ooh.
So I'm like halfway through like 3 books right now. So I'm pretty sure I will finish by the end of the year. So, but one of my favorites from this year was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. It was hands down probably one of, I know, I'm so cliche. It was hands down probably one of the best romances I've read in a really, really long time. So it follows Olive and Adam. And so Olive is a PhD student at a university, and Adam is a professor like at that university. So she's not studying under him or anything like that. But he has this reputation of being horribly grumpy and mean and awful, and all of his students hate him and everyone's afraid of him. And Olive is obviously like the complete opposite. This is the whole sunshine, like grumpy sunshine trope that we all love. And she is bright and bubbly and quirky and adorable, and we love her. So they have a couple of interactions, but I guess the book kind of starts off with she had gone on a couple of dates with this guy. She really wasn't feeling it. And she thought they were better off as friends. And she notices that her roommate is really into this guy. So she sets them up. She's like, listen, no hard feelings. Like, you guys are obviously better suited for each other. You guys should go on a date. Don't worry about me. I'm seeing someone, which is a lie, which I love. And so she's and they're both in science, like in STEM. So she's at the lab one night really late because I believe she's doing like cancer research. And she sees her roommate and the guy, and she's like, oh my God, they're going to know that I lied about being on a date. I have to do something. So she runs out into the hall, and the first person she finds, she's like, just go with it. Just go with it. And she kisses him. And so obviously after, like, you know, her roommate and the guy walk away, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry for ambushing you like that. I just, like, I didn't want my friends to know that, you know, I lied, blah, blah, blah. It turns out the guy she kisses is Adam, this like angry professor that everybody hates. And she's like, ah, shoot. And it's adorable because they end up like fake dating because like the roommate sees it and she's like, oh my God, like that's the professor that everyone hates, and starts telling people. So obviously Olive has to like save face, and Adam kind of like goes along with it. And it's really cute. And I love the fake dating trip. So obviously they have like absolutely ridiculous experiences and interactions, and, you know, spoiler alert, they do fall for each other, but in real life, but it's adorable. And it was so funny and it made me laugh out loud. And I also just really loved the representation. Like there's just really great representation throughout like the whole book. Like it's a really diverse book. There are main LGBTQ characters. Olive is a female in STEM, which I loved as well, because you don't really get to see that very often. Just all around, the book was amazing. And I don't know if this is going to like convince you to read it or a bit of a deterrent, but if our readers have ever heard of something called fan fiction.
Yes.
I wondered if you were going to mention this.
Yeah, I feel like it's worth mentioning because like it's really easy to picture them like if you want to. So fan fiction is essentially something that usually authors online who aren't published or signed or anything just love to write. They will take characters from really popular either book series or movies or TV or whatever they want, and they will continue their stories just in books online. So the Love Hypothesis actually started off as Reylo fanfiction, which is Kylo Ren and Rey from the new Star Wars movies.
Where is this book? I need it right now, okay? Do you know how much I love them? And I got to the last movie and I was just devastated that I didn't get to fully see that. Get out of my way.
I didn't know, like obviously Shelby didn't know that, Kylie did, but yeah, so the Love Hypothesis was originally Reylo fanfic. So but which kills me because the character's name is literally Adam, like, but it's Adam like but no, it's great because like her roommate is the girl, like is Rose, right? So like Rose in the movies is her roommate in the book. So it's, for me anyway, it was really easy to picture all of the characters because I was like, oh yeah. It's great. I loved it. But also if you don't like fan fiction or you don't like picturing or you don't like preconceived imagery of what your character should look like, then just please disregard that. But either way,
it's not obvious. It's not very obvious, but once you know that it's if you like Star Wars, you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not obvious.
No,
and
it's
not. You'd be surprised how often you're typically reading fan fiction, because I feel like even when you take like adaptations of old stories, like I'm sorry, that's basically fan fiction.
That's
right?
fan fiction.
Look at like The Lion King. That's Hamlet. Raise a Hamlet, or that's just fan. Like let's be honest here. Like it happens all the time. So don't put like anything against fan fiction, because really those are the authors that I find are the most connected to the books that they read a lot of times. Like I was talking to another coworker who reads a lot of fan fiction, and just the way that they speak about, they're reading Harry Potter fan fiction. And it just the world so much bigger and richer, and like immerses you in the story where you might not have gotten to when it was, you know, originally published, and gives you these like other little things that you maybe didn't know about, but this person's done research and lived in this world and like expanded it. So do not put anything against fan, because I mean like 50 Shades of Grey is Twilight fan fiction.
50 Shades of Grey is Twilight fan fiction, as is the Christina Lauren Beautiful series was Twilight fan fiction. A lot of your favorite authors were fanfic authors. So like Cassandra Clare's Mortal Instruments series, she's a fanfic author, and the Mortal Instruments was originally a Draco Ginny fanfic.
Amazing.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
I love it.
Like Alice Clayton, the author, she wrote a whole bunch of fan fiction. There's one book in particular of hers, I think it's called Wallbanger. That was that was Twilight fanfic.
Oh, Twilight has created so much fanfic.
So much fanfic. There's a lot of it. I mean, I'm trying to think of Any others? Helena Hunting was a fanfic author, and her series, her duology Clipped Wings and Inked Armor, that was Twilight fanfic. Which is it's an amazing duology, absolutely fantastic. But yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, if we hadn't gotten Twilight, like Christina Lauren, like they got big because of their Twilight fan fiction. Like, where would we be today without
where
Twilight?
would we be without in the holidays or like all of like the Christina Lauren books? They're amazing. Yeah.
I wish I could show you guys my display. So every month, we do a display at our branches of the books that we talk about on the podcast. So this right now, it's currently December when we're recording it, and we've done the holiday display, and I put like tinsel up and like little like snowflakes and everything. Like I walk up to work every day, I'm like, oh, it just looks so festive. So please come see our displays. We actually had somebody the other day come into the library. They weren't even coming into the library to like be here. They were just walking past and they saw the nonfiction display that we did. And she came in and she's like, oh my gosh, I want the book about the cats eating my eyeballs.
Yeah, Caitlin Doty.
Yes.
That's a fantastic book.
Please, yes. If you see these things, there are QR codes. You can scan the QR code that links to the list that it's talking about, but we are always more than happy to help you get the books that are on these lists. And there's one of us at every location that you can find. So we're always here to help you if you need us. Okay, so we're just going to talk about some honorable mentions really quickly before we go. So these guys were in the top 100 of our, so it's called Collection HQ. It's a service that we have that basically tells us all the things that you guys checked out this year. So these were on the top 100 books in Canada. So the Midnight Library, if you're looking for any more information on that one, I did cover it in our first podcast episode for 2021, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So our very first one. So it is in there. When No One Is Watching, People We Meet on Vacation, which I'm going to talk about, Mexican Gothic, A Promised Land by Barack Obama, The Guest List, Anxious People, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and The Lost Fairy, which I think everything on this list we've actually talked about in previous episodes. So if you want, we do have all of our lists on our WPL Suggests. It says Doorway to Discovery and then the episode. So you can go through all of our lists without having to listen to our podcast to see what we wrote or like where it is or to find it. So you don't have to like go through and listen to all of them. But I'm pretty sure we talked about everything on this list except for A Promised Land, which it is nonfiction. So we might have covered.
We briefly discussed it.
In that one. So if you like to go back to episode 15, that one might be in there. But yeah, these are all some really great ones. I agree with every single one on this list. I don't know When No One Is Watching that well, but all phenomenal novels.
Yeah. Should we mention just some upcoming stuff at the library? Okay, so in January, we will have a new scavenger hunt happening at all 3 locations. It's our winter scavenger hunt, so you can stop by the information desks to find out more for participating. What else do we have going on in January?
Start looking out for podcast pick bookmarks. So we're going to be doing a new thing where we're going to be putting bookmarks through books that we have talked about on the podcast. So look out for those across the library. We'll just kind of be sticking them in and it'll tell you what episode it was featured on. And it also has a little QR code on it that will take you right over to our landing page on our website to all of our podcasts uploads. We've recently switched hosts, so it does look a little bit different, and that's typically where you go to find our podcast, but look out for those podcast picks because it will notify you that we read them there, so keep an eye out for that, guy.
Oh, and be sure to tell us your favorite reads of 2021 on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok with Erin. And you could even send us an email. Our email is always in the description box or the show notes of the podcast.
And we look forward to seeing you guys in the new year. Always stop by and say hello. We're always more than welcome to help you find a book. And if you're looking for the weirdest romance you've ever heard of in your entire life, please find one of us or anybody.
Ask one of us.
Yeah.
We've got some ideas.
We've got great ideas, okay? Even if you want just a regular book, come to us. We're here for you. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today and looking at some of our favorites from 2021. And hopefully we'll find some great books in 2022. And if you have any suggestions, please feel free to email us. But we'll see you guys soon.
Bye.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye.